Welcome to this segment of Podcasting by Professionals, Module 2, Part 3, and I'm your host, Suzanne Streisauer, and I'm actually doing this live from my Blog Talk Radio platform of my station on the Living Well Talk Radio Network. So you're going to hear some fun things today. This is going to be conducted as a live interview, but giving you content that you as a beginning podcaster can make sense of in terms of how and where you decide you're going to go with your show and your brand. So I want to give you just a little bit of background about my own show, my own start in radio, and then I'm going to introduce our guests for this quick segment. Both of them have been doing shows for a long time and have expanded out like I have. And so I wanted to give you some of the best minds from a couple of women that I really respect. So I'm going to give you some background of my own start in radio on an FM station and how I learned from the seasoned station manager and host there, and how he taught me my own flow, diction, and pace to the content of my show so that no matter what the content was or how controversial, you could lead your audience down the path to see another point of view. And he also taught me how to lead a guest through an interview so that it stayed lively and was targeted to the needs of my audience. And then when I moved from working in an FM professional studio and with mixing capabilities that I didn't have to touch, I wanted something that I would work with my own kind of technophobic nature. I'm not a big one who likes to use mixing boards and, I don't like all that technology. I wanted a point-and-shoot platform where all I had to do was to have a guest on and to record my content. And you're going to hear that today on this Blog Talk Radio show that I'm doing. And so I chose Blog Talk Radio for its ease of use and also the size of its reach. So today I'm going to talk with a couple of other radio show hosts who have created white label networks or have chosen to go out on their own and create their own radio show, podcasting platform, and businesses, and for them to share their experience and expertise. So I'm really thrilled today because both of these women have big followings, they have big networks and big visions, and this is something like what you can do with yourself in your own podcast. So I hope that this segment provides you with some inspiration. So my guests today are Brenda Pearce, and she started out as a teleseminar host of the Healthy, Wealthy Evolution and saw that what she was doing was a form of online radio through the interview process and the live interaction with callers. Having been bitten by the broadcasting bug, she looked for venues like Dream Vision 7's radio network, and became a weekly guest on News for the Soul. She then branched out into creating a weekly show on Blog Talk Radio and Connect Me Radio Network. And she shares a variety of ways of getting your vision, mission, and passion out into the big world. So, Brenda, welcome to the show today.
Hi, Suzanne. It's a pleasure to be with you and your beautiful audience.
Good deal. And so my other guest today is Kimberly Maska, and she is the host of Mindful Marketing, the podcast where today's mind, body, spirit thought leaders discuss the marketing and business strategies to make your business a success. And the podcast is birthed out of the need to share marketing inspiration with heart-centered entrepreneurs across the globe and to show how to take the icky out of marketing. The Mindful Marketing Show just crossed the 50th episode mark and is celebrating a launch of its new website and Stitcher radio presence. To hear valuable marketing and business knowledge, you can go to mindfulmarketingpodcasting.com. And so welcome to the show today, Kimberly.
Thank you so much for having me.
So here's what I want to do today. You guys both got on the radio and platforms and have done different things with your platforms, and this is for beginning podcasters. And so what I'd like for you to do is, I'm going to start with you, Brenda, is to have each of you tell the listeners in, 2 or 3 minutes about, where you started on your podcast, teleseminar, whatever it was that you did. And similarly, Kimberly, after Brenda gets done, so people can understand what your thinking process was and what took you to the platform you went to. So, Brenda, how did you get started in all this?
Actually, I fell into it. For many, many years, actually, when the Internet first hit our home, I was searching. For great content. I didn't know what it was or where it was or whatever, but I found Jennifer McLean and her worldwide, widely acclaimed teleseminar series. And I became a teleseminar junkie. So I would get the emails, I would send up for the newsletters and get all the information on the shows and start to explore all these amazing speakers and what they were bringing to the plate to enrich my life. And so I was hooked. And then 10 years down, fast forward, what happened was a life change happened. Divorce happened. And it was like I was sitting there in this little apartment with no doors, and I was thinking, my gosh, I get to reinvent myself. What do I want my life to look like? And I went back to the teleseminars, and I thought, I found a training program, got mentored, got set up, but I did this from ground zero. I did not have a book. I did not have a product. I did not have a presence. I was starting like flat out. So I hosted the Healthy Wealthy Teleseminar series for a year and a half, interviewed a lot of great people, and I got thinking, you know what? This is like online radio, even though teleseminars are like well-staged presentation calls. And I was bitten because I loved the audience interaction. I loved, great content. Now, sometimes the content was very staged based on the person, but sometimes there was this free flow, and that's when I really, really found out I have a voice, I have a mission, I have a passion. So I developed that, and then on the journey of wrapping up the teleseminar series, I found Dream Vision 7 Radio, and I connected with that, and I was doing it was only a monthly, live call to a Boston radio station from my comfort of my own home. And again, I loved it. I was bringing some of the people that I really loved from the teleseminar series and highlighting them in a new way, and it was really exciting. So fast forward from there, I went back to News for the Soul, which was one of the premier online presence shows that really helped me to find this whole new genre of personal transformation and enriching lives and this sort of thing. And I got to be a weekly guest with Nicole Whitney on that. So
wow.
Different formats. Yes?
Okay, so that was your start. And let me get Kimberly, and then we're going to see where you guys went when you decided on your own platforms. So Kimberly, where did you start out with all this? Did you just jump in with both feet, or did you have some kind of previous exposure like Brenda and I did, me on FM and her doing teleseminars?
I will have to say this was, and this will be great for all the new podcasters out there. I had no background in radio or podcasting. I actually didn't really even know what a podcast was about a year and change ago, and I started hearing it and listening to them. I'm like, well, that's really fascinating. And I work with heart-centered entrepreneurs and creating their mind, body, spirit businesses. And I was seeing a gap between the clients that I had who could, thankfully afford me and take their business to the next level, and for the people out there who maybe weren't ready to start or they weren't sure how to start, and so they didn't really have the funds to hire a coach and mentor to get them through the process. But I'm like, well, they should still have that information. That should still be available to them. So that is how I created the podcast. It kind of birthed out of how can I help more people that maybe can't afford my services. So I started with the podcast kind of very nonchalantly, and I will say to your new guys out there that, I do not recommend doing what I did. But what I did was I thought, well, I'm going to throw together a podcast. And I was a little sporadic at first. I was always consistent in doing it once a week, but I wasn't giving it a lot of attention. But it started to grow, and more people wanted to hear what I was saying. And then I had more people that now come to me and ask to be a guest on the show, and it started to grow. And so now I had to stop, rethink a few things, and we can talk more about that. But I didn't have the strategy and plan in place when I started, and I should have. So that would be a big learning lesson. But I didn't have any background, but I'm really thoroughly enjoy it. It's so much fun to be able to share information with people and meet amazing people through the podcast guests.
And congratulations on 50 episodes. So,
thank you.
So, Brenda, so you were on all these other platforms, and yes, the good news of podcasting is we get to do it from the comfort of our own homes and our own phones or our own computers, however people decide that they're going to work that. And then what was your platform? What did you decide to use for actually doing your show on? Was it Blog Talk or some other platform?
Well, I did, thank you for asking, and I did move into deciding that I was better to go out on my own than to be a fly on somebody else's wheel. And so Blog Talk Radio became my main focus, and I love it because it is a very low-cost or no-cost way of getting your voice out there in the world. And the reach is magnificent. It has a very broad base, and it's very flexible in what you can upload shows from other places that you've been on, other interviews that you get to be on, and be live, or you can pre-record. So that it's very flexible and very achievable for the everyday person to get their start.
Yeah, you can start for as little as $40 on Blog Talk. So, Kimberly, where did you start? Did you start on Conscious Evolution Media and the Google Hangouts and then do that, which is much more complicated, or did you start somewhere else and then move there?
I've actually started with just doing it up on iTunes. So I would record myself. I do my interviews on the technical side via Skype and would then put it up on iTunes. And it kind of started there and sat there, and then I would post it on my blog, on my own page, and it was just really for a smaller group. And now I am having hit the 50 episode mark. I'm going to now launch it on a much bigger platform since it's had the success it's had. So I will now be actually out on Stitcher, Blog Talk Radio, Buzzsprout, as well as iTunes, and then the promotion amongst myself on its own website, so that it will now have its own website where everybody can go and listen to the podcast as well.
Beautiful. Okay, so that's great. So that takes us to the next piece, Brenda. So you're on Blog Talk, but then you've decided to actually white label and create your own network in a really kind of big way. So will you talk about that sort of evolutionary step that you took?
Yes, gladly. What an in-between piece that people can do is when you create a Blog Talk radio show, you get an MP3, and then you can take that MP3 and you can post it on iTunes and Stitcher and iHeartRadio and on and on and on for free most times, or you can buy their premium packages, but you can still take that one Blog Talk show and expand it. And so distribution is really key. So I just want to put that piece out there. Then what has happened for me is, again, being always very creative, I was able to get in with a much more broad-based, traditional, but very wonderfully syndicated show network called Connect Me Radio. And that is based out of, it's an online radio station based out of a traditional radio station where you can go in and you can record the shows, or you can Skype in or whatever, and you have an actual producer sitting right there with you with the production company, and being able to get sponsorship and expand and start to take what can be a hobby, which can be what people start out as when they dip their toe in, and turn it into a business model where you are actually getting worldwide recognition in a different way. And that is, once you get into sponsorship, then there's the opportunity to be able to sell your shows through a catalog and be on picked up by other AM, FM radio stations on demand and that sort of thing. So but on the way to that as well, I've developed my white label, which is efactorlive.com, and that's a website where I have other podcasters coming on that are in my own genre, and it's personal transformation, energy healing, taking soulpreneurs and giving them greater presence, and creating affiliate marketing strategies with them to help them market and help them reach more audiences as well, which can then be something that I promote on my radio shows and commercials as a sponsorship as well.
Nice. So I love that we're kind of now talking about monetizing your show and how you can monetize it. And it's really interesting because I have monetized my show by doing paid interviews. I've done a lot of paid interviews, and I love doing that. And I'm doing that with a lot of my authors now for the Best Virtual Book Tour, my business, and it gives authors a way to learn or get their toe in the water as, being interviewed and whatever, and then I can refer them on to other people. So in your work with your platform, Kimberly, how have you worked to monetize your own show, or have you, or has that even been the focus for your show?
Interestingly, it was not the focus at all when I started, and it was more for me of getting the information out. And then now that's part of my relaunch will be now to have the full site relaunched and get it back out there, and the monetization will begin to happen with advertising and sponsors. So that's the plan, and that's all lined up to happen. But I think what's so fascinating, what happens for me, is that, and a side that I hadn't thought of until I was in it, was that the connections you make with having your own show, people that you would meet that you would never have met, and you maybe meet them at a networking event, but how do you get to all the people across the country that are on the same vibration of what you're doing? They like what, same topic, and you get to sit and discuss and make friends. And I think that's been the most valuable part of it, and to even monetize, because many of those people have actually turned into clients. And then that's just another networking way, too, of word of mouth once they know me and I get referrals. And so if you have a business behind it as well, which is what I do since I'm a business and marketing consultant, so I have a business behind it with the podcast versus the podcasting my own thing. So I've been able to leverage the relationships that I've built with my guests in just a way that I had no idea I would be able to do.
That's fantastic. I love that. And I think we've all done that in one way. And, Brenda, you've done that, too, with your podcast, that a lot of those people have come on that you've interviewed have actually come on your radio and come on eFactor, Connect Me Radio, all the different platforms you are. You've actually brought your guests onto some of your other platforms and monetize things that way, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no greater thrill than having somebody that you admire become a colleague, a friend, mentor them and receive mentorship from them, and then help to spin that into a wonderful business relationship where it's mutually beneficial.
That's fantastic. Well, I want to thank you both for being with me on this oh-so-quick segment. And but before we go, I want you to both give your websites and your podcasts. So give your podcast and then your website. And I want to say thank you to you both for, a short soundbite with tons of information. So, Brenda, how can people find your podcast and your website?
Oh, great. On Blog Talk Radio, it's blogtalkradio.com/eFactor Brenda Pearce. And I broadcast Mondays at 5:30 live. And then everything's available on the replays and on demand. And the website for my podcast network, which is growing beautifully, is efactorlive.com.
Wow, fantastic. And Kimberly, where can people find you?
Sure, they can find me on. They can find me at KimberlyMaska.com, which has the shows there as well. But the actual podcast is called Mindful Marketing, and there is a mindfulmarketingpodcast.com page they can go to and get some information on it and see the episodes. And you can find me on iTunes as well as coming up on Stitcher and Buzzsprout and Blog Talk Radio pretty quick here.
Beautiful. And for those of you who don't know where to find me, because this is new with Podcasting by Professionals, you can find me on Blog Talk Radio. Living Well Talk Radio Network is my show on the Blog Talk Radio Network. So you can find me there, and you can also find me at SuzanneStreisauer.com. So I want to thank you both for such great information in such a short time, and I look forward to what this possibility can bring for us all. So thanks for joining me again, Kimberly and Brenda.
Thank you.
Absolutely.